Well, the long-awaited Sirianni-Lurie meeting is finally happening today, although gotta hear why our new report on Frank Reich, apparently already working with the Eagles, might be the early indication that Sirianni, unfortunately, is probably staying. Also, Brian Johnson, he's gotten 2 more head coaching job interviews yesterday and the day before, leaving many to wonder if he's not actually the problem. And Howie Roseman signed a former star wide receiver, kind of. I'm Thomas Mott, this is the Thomas Mott Show. Okay, can someone explain to me, like I'm a 5-year-old, exactly how Brian Johnson keeps getting head coaching interviews? He's had a busy last couple days. He interviewed with the Falcons just the other day, and then the Tennessee Titans yesterday. Now, either other NFL teams understand that Sirianni is the mastermind behind the Eagles offense, and Johnson had no part in the disaster, except, I guess, call every single play this year, or teams are just fulfilling their Rooney Rule requirements, kind of like how the Chargers randomly interviewed David Shaw yesterday, when everyone and their mother knows they all want to go ahead and sign Jim Harbaugh. Either way, I wish nothing but the best for Johnson, but if you watch the Birds offense this year and still want him and Sirianni back, I guess you really love screen passes that gain no yards and love throwing outside the hash marks. Now, of course, as I'm filming this video early on a Friday morning, we're all waiting for the meeting of the century between Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, which, yes, is finally happening today, according to John Clark, who said that Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie is traveling back to Philly tonight for these meetings tomorrow from the Caribbean, and will meet one-on-one with Sirianni to hear out Nick's plan to fix all of the Eagles' offensive issues. Now, personally, I hope Lurie remembered exactly how he felt at this moment right here, watching the offensive disaster versus Tampa Bay. And for the love of everything good, can somebody show Lurie Jalen Hurts' passing chart compared to other wildcard quarterbacks last weekend? I mean, there's one throw inside the hash marks here? Seriously, this is the best we can do? Look at Matt Stafford's passing chart versus Detroit, or Patrick Mahomes' passing chart versus the Miami Dolphins. Again, just take a look at that, Mr. Lurie. Tell me how that makes you feel. Now, of course, if and when we get the news on Sirianni's fate, Josh Davis and myself will go live immediately, and so now's your chance to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because one way or the other, we're probably going to have some big news this afternoon. Unfortunately, I think Sirianni's probably going to stay, mainly due to reports yesterday that Howie and Nick have begun to reach out to possible coordinator candidates, plus this report from Jacob Sports seemingly to indicate that Frank Reich, yes, that Frank Reich, is already consulting Sirianni on possible OC hires.
Frank Reich has been contacted by the Philadelphia Eagles, not only as a potential offensive coordinator, but he's working also with helping Nick and the front office go through some of these coordinators. He is involved. And to what extent will his job be moving forward? That I don't know. But he is consulting Nick Sirianni in the search for coordinators. Just so you know. Will he take the OC job? I can't answer that because I don't know really. Frank won't answer that. Frank is giving the owner, the general manager, and Sirianni input on coordinators around the NFL.
Now, I know it's Dan Celo, you only take it with a grain of salt, but he is very plugged in with the Philadelphia Eagles and has gotten reports like this right in the past. And of course, we know Nick Sirianni absolutely loves Frank Reich, and so it's no surprise that Reich is already consulting Sirianni on who he should go ahead and hire as OC. Now, even if Sirianni does stay, we know at least for a fact they will fire somebody, and that somebody is probably the combination of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. Although after apparently seeming fine with it, Eagle players are now starting to reveal that mid-season defensive coordinator change was a lot harder than they actually let on. I mean, listen to Big Play Slay here.
It's a big move all across the board. I never been a part of none of that, as in just a whole new coordinator coming in. That's tough, but, I don't control that kind of stuff. I just kind of try to do my job the best way I can, but trying to find 2 identities of a coach is tough. That's like having 2 marriages. Or the 2 marriages would probably be the household. 2 personalities of 2 women. That's tough. No offense to the women.
Oh, and on top of that, apparently Slay told the always reliable Inquirer columnist Marcus Hayes that Dennard Wilson, who Sirianni snubbed then fired last year, who is now the DB coach for the #1 seed Ravens, would have been a better Eagles DC than Patricia and Sean Desai. Now, personally, I couldn't agree more. I would absolutely love for the Birds to bring back Dennard Wilson as defensive coordinator in 2024, but if you actually think that Wilson, who, again, was almost given the job and then Sirianni said, nope, we're going to give it to Sean Desai, actually wants to come back, if Sirianni is still here, then I got a bridge in Brooklyn that I could sell you for really, really cheap. Now, if you care to hear what Donna McNabb thinks about the Eagles' issues, you probably don't, but still, he thinks someone else besides Sirianni should be getting fired.
Well, I don't think that they should move on from Nick Sirianni. I'm going to tell you who should be on the hot seat, and that should be your GM, Howie Roseman, because this is his groceries. These are his groceries. These are the produce that he went on and got shopping, and this is what we're seeing. Because to be honest with you, we may have held on to some people too long, and then we paid some people that we shouldn't have paid. And so when it comes down to it, like the product that you put out on the field, it's not so much of the coaches, it's the players. Because when you put the team in a position, they got to make plays. And if they're not making plays, then we can't just all of a sudden go to the coaches, or you can't go to people making the decisions if the players aren't capable of making plays.
Now, I obviously don't agree with that, although we can't act like Howie's completely void of all wrong this offseason. I mean, he lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson and instead signed James Bradbury. And then, of course, according to Clay Harbor, the Eagles' former tight end yesterday, Howie never offered T.J. Edwards a contract when he wanted to stay in Philly. No extension talk, no contract when he was a free agent. Definitely came back to bite them. Yikes. Again, that was a bad move by Howie Roseman. Oh, and especially since James Bradbury is going to cost almost double the dead cap space over the next 2 years, then TJ Edwards will cost the Bears over the duration of an entire 3-year contract. Again, big yikes. Still, Howie built a championship caliber roster just last season, and of course he has misses. He's had plenty of misses throughout his entire career, but he's still one of the more respected and better GMs in the NFL. He can take blame, but he's very clearly not getting fired this offseason. Oh, and speaking of Howie, he was already starting to work on the 2024 roster yesterday when he signed former Browns preseason star wide receiver Austin Watkins, who apparently was offered multiple deals from other teams, but chose to come to Philadelphia. Now, you might remember Watkins as the guy who went for 139 yards against the Eagles in the Browns preseason game just a couple of months ago. Although the UAB wide receiver did not make the final 53-man roster with the Browns, he then cleared waivers, returned to the practice squad, and then went all season not being elevated to the active roster once. Although, according to sources inside of Cleveland, Watkins did not get along with the Browns front office, and there was a feeling that he wasn't given a fair shot this season to showcase his abilities, especially having the preseason that he did. And I'm not saying that they found a diamond in the rough, but surely he's better than Quez Watkins, right? And maybe can give Alameda Zaccheaus a run for his money next camp. You got to realize you're probably losing Julio Jones as well this offseason, and so getting additional wide receiver depth behind 6 and 11 definitely makes some sense to me. Now, of course, all eyes are going to be on the whole Sirianni-Lurie meeting today, and I'll be very surprised if there isn't any sort of news on that, whether he's staying or whether he's going. I guess it's a Friday, and so you technically could have the meeting, go home, have the weekend to think about it, and then maybe drop something on Monday. My best guess is, though, is that they're going to say, we're going to keep him. They dump it on a Friday. That way it kind of gets lost in the news cycle of what is a typical weekend. Now, whenever this happens, like I said at the very beginning of the show, we will be going live, the first channel live as always. Myself, Josh Davis. Hit that sub button notification bell down below right now. That way you're notified whenever you get the latest news on Nick Sirianni. I'm keeping an eye on all of this and a whole lot more as I dive headfirst into the Eagles offseason. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.